We hope you made it through a Monday and it wasn't that stressful for you. I sometimes find Mondays are a little bit hectic. I don't know about you, Casey, but I always feel like at the end
Absolutely.
of Monday, it's like, I made it.
Mhm.
Smooth sailing. So today we're going to talk to you guys about batch cooking because it's really, really important in order to stay on track with a joint-friendly or autoimmune-friendly eating plan. But before we get started, we're just going to quickly introduce ourselves for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are. My name is Jessica Melnick. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group, and I help both women and men with various forms of arthritis get back to living life the way that they choose to, not the way that they have to. And Casey, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, my name is Casey Kephart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist for women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get you back to the activities you love to do, trash those symptoms, get your life back. And I live in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Amazing. So today we are talking about batch cooking. I know it sounds really simple, but actually executing it can sometimes be challenging. So we're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty of how we do this and how we make it easy and make it work in our lives so that we can stay on top of our healthy eating plans.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why batch cooking is so important is that we need to be prepared ahead of time so we don't get stuck eating food that is inflammatory and it's going to make our arthritis or our autoimmune symptoms worse. And if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. So batch cooking is key in order to stay on top of our designated eating styles. So for example, I guess we should just define what batch cooking means in general. The way I look at batch cooking is making extra food. So I plan to make a couple different meals a week that I kind of alternate through. And I make them in large amounts. So there's usually some that I freeze for the following week so that I have leftovers and it's just really quick and easy for me to grab for meals after a long work day during my week. And all I have to do is add a salad and or veggies as a side dish. So that's kind of what I would define batch cooking as. Did you want to add to that at all, Casey?
Yeah.
Batch
I think
cooking?
there's a couple different kinds. So the one I do most often is what you just said with the leftovers. Like if I'm going to make steak, I'm not just going to make one steak, I'm going to make 4 steaks. If I make a burger, I'm going to make 4 burgers, not just one burger. So that way there's always something in the fridge. Another form of batch cooking, though, that I would highly recommend, but it does take time and energy and more planning, is set aside half a Saturday or half a Sunday, get your groceries, and then batch cook your lunches and your dinners for the week. That means putting things in the freezer, putting things in the refrigerator, and everything is already set up for you. So you're not grabbing fast food or foods that are not on your protocol. There's a couple different ways to do it, but I think I would start with, and I would recommend making more food for dinner than you will eat and just sticking that in the fridge. That's the simplest way to get started.
Absolutely. And I also think too, if you do have a sweet tooth or you like desserts, get, a joint friendly or an autoimmune friendly dessert recipe or snack recipes. Make those ahead of time and keep them in your freezer. Most of them freeze really well. And then when you have, feel a sweet tooth coming on, you can just take something out of the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
You're not tempted to, drive down to your local ice cream shop or convenience store or to get something, or bakery that, is going to inflame your joints or make you tired and feel worse.
Yeah.
So that's something I always have on hand. I always have a few different desserty type things, whether it's like, a low carb nut butter mixed with chocolate cup that I've made for myself or,
Mm-hmm.
An autoimmune friendly muffin, things like that. It's, that freeze well and they're really great to have on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that either last night or today, actually, that I need to start doing that. It's been a long time since I've pre-made desserts. And I'm finding myself just going to the honey jar and like putting some honey on my finger and then eating it. And it's like, I can't keep doing this. I need something actually stable. And I'm a big fan of fat bombs because one, they kind of fill you up better than honey will. And two, it's just something you can crunch and it tastes good and it's always available. And they're like 2 to 3 ingredients. So super easy, but it's that planning that we're talking about. That's the hardest part of it all, is that taking time out of your day to look for recipes, to go to the grocery store. But once you get into a routine and a habit of doing it, it is worth it. And I bet you that you will find 10 times more results and consistency with your batch cooking than you will if you did not batch cook. You'll fall off a little easier. At least Jessica and I do. And I would assume that's more of a human thing than it is a Jessica and Casey thing.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to share what we do just to give you guys some examples of how we make this work in our life. So for example, when you break it down, you have to think, okay, so what are the steps that I need to take in order to have food in my fridge that's ready on a regular basis and I have minimal effort to prepare it? So the first thing is, okay, you have to pick the recipes. So I like to break up these steps at different points in my week because I find it a little overwhelming to pick my recipes, get the groceries, and then do the cooking all in the same day. So for me, I'll start thinking to myself on the weekend, okay, well, what do I want to have for next week, or even earlier than that? And I kind of keep a running list of links to different recipes that are tried and true and that I really like. So I'll pick the recipes that I want to make. Then I'll make a grocery list, and then I pick a day. I plan the day and the time, like an appointment in my calendar, to actually physically go out and get those groceries. And then I also physically plan and pick a day and a time in my calendar to do the cooking, so that it's going to happen. I find if I don't make an appointment with myself, if I don't put it in my calendar, there's something else always comes up, and then I won't make it happen. I do that with all my appointments, whether it's exercise, my client appointments, any other errands I have to run. It's all put in there and it's a priority.
Yeah. I am such a calendar person too. Like if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen, but I don't do it for batch cooking. So I should actually do that. That's a great suggestion as well. I often don't like putting things in my calendar for the weekends because when I was younger, I worked every single weekend. I hated the weekends. And now that I don't have to, it's like I am not planning anything stable for my weekends. So, but if it's in the calendar, I will do it. So I love that suggestion. What I usually do, or what I've been doing lately, is what I just said before, is like making so many more leftovers than I need to. But when I am on a very diligent routine with batch cooking, I'll do the same thing as you, Jessica. I will find recipes earlier in the week when I have the energy and time. And I do like looking for recipes on Pinterest, at least. It's fun for me. I see all the pictures and I get creative and ideas. It like sparks my creative juices that I have very minimal of. So anything helps with that. But, and then I'll make a list probably a couple days later of what I need from the grocery store. And then another day, probably over the weekend when I have more time, would be the batch cooking process. And I try to make it as efficient as possible for the batch cooking process. So I'll do a couple recipes at a time. When one's baking, start the other one. And then, all of the shared ingredients, the recipes will be made closer together than like putting ingredients back in the fridge and taking them back out and doing all of that. So also, if you can get somebody to help you, do it. If you have a spouse, if you have a daughter, if you have a granddaughter, make it fun. Blast some music, ask for help. Make it not so much of a chore for yourself. Also, doing this when you are not hungry is probably the best option you can do too, because I find that when I'm hungry and batch cooking, I eat too much, I'm a little cranky, and the brain fog kind of hits. So those would be my pieces of advice.
Yeah. And the thing too is if you don't want to batch cook on the weekend, like if you'd rather do other things,
Hmm.
pick a day during the week that works better for you. I know for me, sometimes I have no choice but to do some during the week because, like, for example, this weekend I was away. So thankfully, I had some food frozen from last week that I was able to take out to last me, the first like day or two. And then to give me a time, like some time to actually get caught up and have some time where I can squeeze in some cooking
Yeah.
earlier in this week so that I'm good for the rest of the week. And I also find too, for me, I always say I pick two main meals and I like to alternate those for lunch and supper during the week. And that usually gets me to kind of Friday, where we usually make something a little more special, a little bit different for Friday. And then the weekend, we're a little bit more flexible because we've got more time available because we're working during the week. So it's just really finding what is going to work for you and
Hmm.
picking, making that time in a way that you're not going to dread it necessarily, and making it a little more fun. Like I know for myself, I like to listen to podcasts while I'm cooking and prepping and cleaning and doing all that stuff, and it makes it so much easier for me. And I also have a spouse who is a great cook and is helpful as well in the kitchen. So having that help too, it makes it so much easier to stay on track because it's not so overwhelming to do everything on your own, unless you're one of those people who really does love cooking. I know I have a client who really likes to cook something every day, and that's just something that's her way of doing things. She doesn't really like to do a whole lot ahead of time. But for some of us, it's just like, oh my gosh, cooking at the end of the day is the last thing I want to do. That's usually how I feel. I can muster up the energy to roast some vegetables or to like throw together like a quick veggie salad of some sort. But having to cook like a meat meal from from scratch, no, I don't really
Yeah.
want to do that during the week.
No, I totally agree. And that's where the crock pot is great too, though. If you don't want to cook every day, the crock pot will cook it for you and you just leave it alone. I personally do Butcher Box and it comes to my door every month with all of the meats in there, which is one step to the grocery step process that we need to do weekly, right? And that just comes monthly for me. So that kind of wipes away what I need to get at the grocery store. But what I'm getting at is I will pick the meats that I can just like put in a crock pot and I'll have like 2 weeks worth of made meat already. So I'll put some in the freezer. And then the ones that I put in the fridge for the week, I can do a variation of how I want to eat it. Like one of the things I get is like a pork butt. So I just put that in the crock pot on low for about 8 hours. And you can put those in like tacos. You can eat them plain. You can mix different vegetables with them. I do it for breakfast of eggs and the pork butt with bacon. It's very versatile. So another recommendation, buy a big honking piece of meat, throw that in the crock pot or on low in the oven if you're going to be home all day. Let it do its work for you and you come out with 3 pounds of meat. It's an easy decision.
Yeah, and I think too, I know a lot of people will do like separate lunches, or their lunches look a lot different than dinners. And I always say lunch and dinner are interchangeable. Like you want to have some good quality protein and
Mm-hmm.
some lots of veggies as well. And I say like, yeah, whatever you have for dinner, you can have for lunch. So just making extra, or just to have more, and
Yeah.
so that you don't have to worry about, okay, well, I have to get lunch groceries and I have to get dinner groceries. They can be one and the same.
I even say that for breakfast, though. Like in my program, I say have your leftover dinner for breakfast if you are a breakfast person. That just makes things easier. And especially on the AIP, one of the elimination foods is eggs. And that's the main breakfast food for most of us in America, at least. And so I feel like gaining on what Jessica just said, all meals are interchangeable when you are on an autoimmune protocol lifestyle. So I think the premise here, though, is like finding what works for you with what foods work for you, what recipes work for you, whether that's time wise, difficulty wise, ingredient wise, and then how we're going to batch cook and what mechanism works best for you. And that just happens by trying it out, practice, and a guess and check. Jessica and I have been doing this for on and off for 10 years, I feel like. So we've had that chance to figure it out, and we get off our routine and we get back on our routine. And this is just, it ebbs and flows, and that is life. But I do feel like everybody does need to batch cook to be successful, though. I don't think it's one of those things that we can kind of let ride at the waistline. If that makes, I don't even know if that's the right term, but you know what I mean.
You know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to just make one other point too. I often feel that when people start a healthier eating plan for their arthritis or their autoimmune condition, is that they think that they're going to have to eat foods that they don't like. And then they pick recipes that don't appeal to them because they feel like they have to eat a certain way. If you're not going to stick to it, if you're hating what you're eating, you know, you can find recipes that are delicious and that are going to be good for you. So eat food that appeals to you. I always say that, like, give my clients the recipes in the program and they pick which ones they want to make, because everybody has different tastes. You can't just give everybody the same menu plan because everybody is different. I know for me, I'm just like, I've read menu plans and stuff online, and some of the stuff in there, I'm like, I would never eat that. It grosses me out. That doesn't appeal to me. I would never eat that. So you have to eat what you actually look forward to eating. And you absolutely can do that in a way that's going to support your health. So.
Right. Yeah. No one's telling you to eat salads every day with low fat dressing and, you know, go barf your brains out afterwards. Like find things that you enjoy, because there's so many recipes out there for any type of protocol that you are doing, not just ours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's it that's in a nutshell. So reach out to us if you guys have any questions about what we talked about today. You know, share your batch cooking tips and tricks if you have any. I'm sure the rest of our communities would be happy to hear what you guys do and what works for you.
Everybody have a good Tuesday, and Jessica will be back on Thursday.
You bet. Take care, everyone.
Bye.